Greetings gardeners, Phil the Practical Gardener again, and this particular tip is 24.8, growing potatoes. So I'll be focusing on the requirements the potatoes have for successful cultivation and results, and also some of the pitfalls that can occur along the way. Now, potatoes do require quite a lot of room to grow in a garden situation. I don't have a problem because I have got quite a large garden. However, if you don't have enough room, you can grow them in modules or other forms of containers such as bags. I've never needed to do this. However, I have watched a few videos on this topic, and it seems to me that most of the ones I watch, the person puts the bag and then they buy potting media and they put that into the bag. And I wonder what they do with that media at the end of the season. Because if you keep buying more and more media every year, you've got a problem about getting rid of it, and you've also got an extra expense and the bag themselves that you buy. If you buy them in a plastic bag, then that is not very environmentally sustainable. So I think there are ways that you can refresh potting media so that it can be used for a number of years, and I would suggest that you be sure that you can actually use one of those methods to improve the potting mix so it can be used again before you actually go down that pathway. Otherwise, I think you're doing a short-term solution, whereas really you need it to be a long-term method. The second aspect is the growing conditions of the potatoes. Now, potatoes need full sun. That is to say, they're in full sun for the majority of the day. So my gardens, for example, don't have sun the whole time. They might have early morning shade and late in the afternoon because I'm in a suburban situation. However, during the middle part of the day, for say 6 or 8 hours or so, they are in full sun. The second aspect is fertility. Potatoes are a high fertility demanding crop. So you can put artificial fertilizers or organic supplements. In my situation, I don't do any of that. If you watch my other tips, you'll find that I relentlessly return all of the organic matter that I produce on my property back into the soil, and I'll be showing you one example at least as we go through this tip. As a result, I've never had to add any artificial additives or other organic supplements into my soil for over 10 years. My results are perfectly satisfactory. This is one root from a main crop potato that I just simply dug this morning. As you can see, they're doing perfectly well. The second aspect is watering. Potatoes grow very rapidly and they do require a lot of irrigation during the growing season, particularly for main crop potatoes, which are the ones that you grow over the summer period. So in my situation, I water them about every second day if it's hot and windy over the summer period. Another problem that you can have is pests and diseases. The pests might be local to your vicinity, so you might need to find out about that. The main diseases in most temperate areas are early blight and late blight, and they're actually unrelated diseases even though they have the same name, that is the blight. Early blight infests plants during spring, during cool, moist conditions. I'm showing an image here of early blight on a tomato plant. I don't have any images of it on a potato plant because I don't have a problem with it. However, potatoes and tomatoes are quite closely related, so the symptoms are quite similar. As you can see, there are necrotic or dead areas on the foliage and spots. Late blight can actually devastate the whole crop, and it occurs in warm periods over the summer. There are a range of pests that also attack them. We have a problem here with a particular one called the tomato potato psyllid, which introduces a bacteria into the plants. My solution to these pests is to grow early in the season. So I actually grow an early crop which I plant over the winter because I am a low frost environment, and then I plant a main season crop during spring, which is the one that I'm harvesting here. I'll talk first about the early crop. As I mentioned, I'm in a very low frost environment. In fact, most years I get no frost at all. If you get a small amount of frost through the winter only, then you would need to protect the plants by adding a material such as frost cloth over the top. You can't simply drape the frost cloth over the plants because if it's in contact with the plants, the frost will go through the cloth and transmit directly onto the plants. However, you can put up a cloche frame and then you can drape the frost cloth over that, as I'm showing here. So this image, it's actually insect netting over a different crop, but this is the same principle. So if you got these same tunnel structures and you drape the frost cloth over that, that should save it from a few degrees of frost. If you get heavy frosts or snow where you are, then you probably have no option but to wait until spring. I buy seed potatoes, which are small tubers, from a garden store. You can grow them from your own crop after you've harvested. However, there is a risk of virus if you do this. These ones that I've harvested here, such as this one, or even the smaller one there, would actually be suitable for growing on, and there's probably not too much risk of virus. The seed potatoes can be chitted or pre-sprouted before you plant them. Now this might be a good idea if you're in a frosty environment, so you want to start the plants off before you plant them after the danger of frost. I've never bothered with that, and commercially they don't do that. I plant the tubers in furrows about 10 centimeters or 4 inches deep. Early potatoes can be spaced at about 20 to 25 centimeters or 8 to 10 inches. For early potatoes on heavier soils, it might pay to actually create a slight mound and then create a small furrow on that and plant the potatoes onto that, so that you're actually planting above the poorly drained and poorly aerated part of the soil. It sounds a bit odd. When you come to mound them up, which I'll explain in a moment, then you've got much less scope for the mounding. However, you can't do very much mounding on early potatoes anyway, as I'll explain. Space the rows about 60 centimeters or 24 inches apart for these early crop potatoes. This is closer than for the more vigorous main crop potatoes. As the plants grow, pull soil up over the developing stems. This creates a mound and leaves only the newest shoots exposed. This encourages the formation of more tubers. The practice also helps with weed control and prevents the greening of tubers that can occur if they are exposed to light. Since early potatoes aren't very vigorous, 1 or 2 moundings may all that can be managed, especially remembering that the rows are fairly close together. As a rule, early potatoes can be harvested when the flowers are fully opened, although some varieties don't flower at all. Now you can test to see if the crop is ready by scratching down onto the surface and having a look to see if the tubers have formed to a reasonable size. This is about normal size for early potatoes, perhaps more that size. Now we call this process tickling or bandicooting. I don't know why they have these terms. Some people believe that the bandicooting does actually encourage the creation or the formation of more tubers. However, I'm pretty dubious about that. If you find that the crop hasn't really developed much, you can just simply pull the soil back over the plant. You can leave mature plants in the ground for a month or so and harvest them gradually, so long as they haven't started sprouting again. The tubers should be dug up with a garden fork. Avoid spiking the tubers by inserting the prongs into the soil away from the plant, then lift the soil and tubers gently upwards and shake to release the tubers. So these ones I'm showing here have been ready for a month or so, but I've just left them in the ground and I've just dug these ones this morning. Main crop potatoes. These are planted later after the danger of frost and after the soil has warmed up. The plants are less tolerant to the cold. Plant the tubers in furrows about 15 centimeters or 6 inches deep. They're spaced at 30 to 35 centimeters, that is 12 to 14 inches. Space the rows about 70 to 80 centimeters, that is 28 to 32 inches, apart for this crop. So these spacings are greater than for the early croppers as they are more vigorous. The mounding can be done 2 or maybe even 3 times, as the vigorous plants have the ability to grow through several layers of soil. This should increase your crop. Over summer, watering needs to be done regularly, as potatoes are shallow rooted and need to grow continuously without a check. Summer varieties are usually dug up when the tops die off. Again, they can be left in the ground for some time and dug up as needed. Note here that I have let the annual weeds grow among the potato crop and simply leave them on the ground as I harvest the tubers. This is part of my chop and drop regime for building up my soil by returning organic matter. See my tips 9.4, organic matter in the soil, and 7.8, sheet composting. Just a reminder that I haven't added any artificial fertilizers or other organic supplements to my soil. Everything that has gone in the soil over the last decade has been what I've actually grown on the property in the first place. So that's it for this tip. I wish you the best of success in growing potatoes. I find them a very fulfilling crop to grow because they're a very versatile plant for culinary purposes, and also it's great just forking the creamy orbs out of the ground. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so that you're sure to see further tips as they become available, and also like this video. And thank you for watching it right through to the end.